Hello there, darlings. I suppose we're live now. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone who's here watching now, live, watching on the replay. Thank you very much for being here, for having subscribed, for being your fabulous selves. So today we have a very special guest. We have Bianca from the channel Second Gem Stockholm Syndrome. And we will be talking about our experience in the Cadet Org. Because, of course, we were both in the Cadet Org, but at different times and at different locations. So without any further ado, please welcome Bianca. Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
Excellent.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's alive, darling.
Is it live? Okay. Are there people here? Because I don't see any people.
I don't see any people yet, but that's all right. We'll just start, and then people will flock along.
Okay, good. All right. So where should we start?
How about if you briefly maybe introduce yourself, your involvement in Scientology? Obviously, we know already now you were in a Cadet Org. So what's your involvement in Scientology? Are you a second, a third gen in the Cadet Org, in the Sea Org? And then maybe when you left the Sea Org and yeah. How about that?
Yes. So I'm a second gen. Although we had 3 generations in Scientology, but my mother and her brothers got my grandmother in, so I consider myself second gen.
Sure.
And I was not born in the Sea Org, but when I was 2, my parents joined the Sea Org. So I was at the Flag Cadet Org in Clearwater, Florida, from the age of 2 and until I was either 14 or 15, I think 15, and then I was in the Sea Org. And then I left the Sea Org in 2001.
Right.
Just months after 9/11. And then I was, still in the bubble for a number of years. And finally left Scientology about 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Okay. Wow. And now you're here being fabulous.
Yeah.
Great.
Attempting to be fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, come on. We're Europeans. It's natural.
It's natural.
Of course. Yes. Okay, cool. So we wanted to talk about today the Cadet Orgs, our own experience. As you mentioned, you were in a Cadet Org in America. I was in a Cadet Org at St. Hill. And of course, the Cadet Org, the Sea Org, Scientology, it's all based on the works of Aaron Hubbard. So naturally, it should be all exactly the same.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, when you have certain people who are being nicer or less nice in charge, then things are being done a little differently, of course. And some policies are put more in place than others. So I've allowed myself to write down a few little ideas. You've also written down a few ideas that we can maybe just talk about. And then I'll just start off right at the top. How long were you in the Cadet Org?
So from 2 to, let's say, 15. I don't actually remember when I went to the EPF.
Yeah.
And I went to the EPF twice. Once when I was 12. I do know that.
Wow.
Once when I was, I think, 15. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say 2 to 15.
Yeah. Wow.
So what's that? 13 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I'm I think 10 years older than you are.
Yes, I was born. I mean, a lady should never say when she was born, but I was born in 92. So about
I'm
10
years older than you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I was in from 84 to, I think, will that be 96 or 97?
Yeah. And can I ask what happened? So you first did the EPF when you were 12, and then was it just too difficult for you, or what happened? Or did somebody intervene and say, no, why is she doing with 12 years old already EPF? This doesn't make any sense. Let her continue being a cadet, or
12 was not a young age for Flag, for the EPF.
Really?
It was, I think the youngest person who's ever completed the EPF at Flag was 10 or 11 when he completed it.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah. But I was, just at the Cadet Org minding my own business. And then the cadet coordinator came to me one day and said, you're needed in the Sea Org, so you're going to the EPF, so pack your bag and you'll be joining them tonight. And it was me and another girl.
Wow. Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. And this was they were just renovating the AO building, the Advanced Org building at the Sandcastle.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be done soon, and they needed to man it up. So
Right.
they were right. So me and this other girl, we were on the EPF. We were the youngest ones there at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they always think, if you grew up in the Cadet Org, they always think you're gonna just go through that really quickly. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think we were taking maybe a little bit too long, or a
Yeah.
little bit longer than they expected. But
Yeah.
then also, anyways, one day we got pulled in to the EPFIC, and he said, unfortunately, you can't finish the EPF because there's been a flap, and somebody called the Clearwater Police and reported child labor.
Right.
So we were taken off the EPF,
Mm-hmm.
and at this time, the AO building had just been opened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so we were taken off the EPF, and we were instead posted in the AO in the testing center
Okay.
in a not Sea Org uniform, but a
Right.
uniform nonetheless. And so I ran the testing center, me and this other girl, from
And
9
just
a.m.
again, you were 12 years old?
I was 12 years old, yeah.
Wow.
So we ran the testing center, I think, for about 6 months. And then there was someone that finished the EPF and they got posted as the proper testing IC.
But then, so you were sort of like at that time in between being a cadet and a SEALC member?
Yeah.
You were not like, were you sort of told, okay, now you're back a cadet,
Yes.
but you're on a different schedule?
Yes. I was on a special mission.
Oh, right.
Special mission. Yeah. So,
Special mission. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So we ran the testing center from 9 or 10 a.m. to
Yeah.
6 p.m.
Okay. And in the testing center, remind me, do you have to handle completely new public?
No.
Okay.
So this was the Advanced Org Testing Center. So whenever you finish an intensive in auditing,
Mm-hmm.
or 12 and a half hours in auditing, then you have to redo the IQ test and the
Right.
Oxford personality test and so on to show
Mhm.
that you've improved.
Yeah, the
So
process.
we had
Not
all these
it's obviously
OTs.
obvious improvement. It's not that, oh, I just did the test a month ago and
Yeah.
I sort of remember the question, so I can just do it again. No,
Yeah.
that's not why it improved.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Oh wow, that's incredible. I mean,
Mm,
I have something similar, though not quite as intense. I
mm,
did the so I was in the Cadet Org. I joined the Cadet Org when I was 13 years old.
mm,
And then I remained until I was 16 years old. But when I was 14 years old, I was put on the EPF. And it wasn't abrupt as it was with you. It was sort
mm.
of like, it was a conversation. And I'm pretty sure they said, oh, we need you. We need as many people as possible. I don't remember that exactly. But I don't remember it being like this urgent thing. Like I had a few days to sort of prepare myself mentally for it. And then I did the EPF. And I believe to do the EPF, you're supposed to only take like 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's how it's supposed to take,
Mm.
actually. But I was on
Yeah.
it for months. I was on it for quite a few months.
Yeah.
And then eventually they just said, look, you clearly are not ready for this. So you have to go back to
Yeah.
the cadet org. And I was low-key quite glad to do so because as a cadet, of course, you still work, but you
Yeah.
had school time. We had school time. We're going to
Mm.
talk as well about your school time. We
Yeah.
had school time. So in school time, you just sit down and you do sort of a little bit of classes, but it's nothing very, it was not very strenuous. It was not like a proper school. Everybody just did for themselves maths or English or whatever. And it was on such a low level. It was like very, very easy stuff. It was nothing really particularly challenging. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I was very smart or anything, but it was just generally not very challenging because
No.
also the people there are not qualified. They're not actual teachers, right? They're just
No.
SEALC members, taken out to do this. So it was. I knew that I knew that when I finished the EPF, it's going to be much tougher. I would have to work every day, the whole day long, doing
Yeah.
all sorts of things. So I was kind of low key glad I didn't manage to do it, and I sort of, I think, sabotaged the whole situation, if I'm being honest, like purposely going into word chains and things like that.
Yeah. I
For
was I
anyone who's
was
yeah.
I was very upset when they took me off because I saw it as a failure.
Right. Okay.
But
Sure.
I was also struggling a lot
Yeah.
at 12.
How was that with you? I mean, you were the youngest. What would be the next age? Still in the teens, already over 20, 30?
No, at that time, I think the youngest person besides us, let's see, I remember him. He had braces. I think he
Hmm.
was 17 or 18.
Okay.
He might have been just 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but did you have to do the same kind of work? Because when you're
Yes.
on the EPF, you have to do the courses, of course. There's 7
Mm.
courses that you have to do, as
Yeah.
well as physical labor. And you had to do. It was like it didn't matter that you were younger, that you were small in stature. It didn't matter. You just got the same job as everybody else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was used to that already from the Cadet Org. That wasn't
Sure. Yeah.
weird for me.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. Yeah, I know what you mean. I have obviously a similar experience that I also grew up as you did in Scientology, and I just didn't know anything better. So it
Yeah.
was normal, that sort of thing. But now, looking back, I'm like, oh, crazy stuff.
Yeah. I think the thing that I struggled with in the EPF compared to the Cadet Org was that everything had to go so much faster.
Right. Okay.
Like when we were cadets and we were doing manual labor or whatever, it could take the time it took.
Right.
But on the EPF, it was always like they had a stopwatch and they were timing you all the time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then you did the second time the EPF. How old were you again?
I was probably 15.
15. Okay. Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
15, 14 or
Yeah.
15. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
did then my one when I was 16, and then
mm,
that was that for me. And then there was not even a possibility to have gone back to the cadet org, because at the time you were only able to be a cadet at the most 16. I mean, it was always expected
mm,
that with 14 you would do it the EPF, and most of them did as well and finish it. And
yeah.
then when I was with 16, I had to actually finish the EPF. There was no real possibility of going back.
Yeah. When I did the EPF at 16, the majority of the EPFers done were teenagers.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And the other half, it was almost like 50-50. It was teenagers from the United States and from Canada, a
Right.
lot of Canadians then. And the other half were middle aged uh, Eastern Europeans and Russians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, weird.
Yeah. Okay. And when you were in the Cadet Org, obviously you joined when you were 2 years old.
Hmm.
Do you remember the age range? Did it go until 16, like it was for me, or what was sort of like the cap until what age could you actually remain a cadet?
Um, well, I don't remember exactly when I was that little,
Of
but I
course,
do
yeah.
know, yeah, most kids weren't cadets longer than 16. By
Okay.
16, you were on the EPF
Right.
most of the time.
Yeah.
However, towards the end of the time when I was at Flag, there were a number of teenagers in the Cadet Org who were refusing to go to the EPF, but because their
Mm,
parents were SEERG members, they were like in this gray zone of not going into the SEERG, but their parents wouldn't just throw them out.
right.
So there were a number of older teenagers towards the end. Yeah.
And I can imagine they had to do doubt conditions.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Did you have to do doubt conditions when you were in the EPF, in the Cadet Org?
Um, yes, yes, I did.
Hmm. Hmm.
Most of the time, we weren't assigned doubt. It was often liability.
Oh, okay. No, I had to
Yeah.
do doubt condition a few times, yeah, because I didn't want to be there and so on and so forth. But
Okay.
then they convince you. Yeah.
I was assigned treason once when I said I wanted to leave.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, but we had most of the time we did conditions every week based on our
Oh,
stats.
of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Hmm.
There's some questions. Should we take? I see one about the EPF.
Yes. Let's have a look. Hello there, the nurse who loved me. 89. Hello there. Is DPF the program where you have to wear black and run everywhere instead of walking? I'm not sure. I'm confusing it with something else. Well, you're confusing it slightly because this would be the RPF where you'll be all in black. When you're on the EPF, you are of course also expected to be jogging everywhere. You're not supposed to walk or just sort of slack around, stand in the
Mm,
corner with a lazy cigarette or something.
yeah.
You're also supposed to be running around, but you are as an EPFer, and do correct me if this is wrong. When you walk, when you jog from place to place, and you see a SEAL member, you see an officer, you would say, "Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir." You're allowed to talk to them,
Yeah.
right? But an RPF is not allowed. Oh, actually, is that wrong? They're not allowed to
No, the
talk to
RPF
anybody,
is
right?
not allowed to initiate conversation.
Right. Somebody else can
Yeah.
talk to them, and then they can respond, but not the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
the EPFs usually are in blue, aren't they? That's the sort
yeah.
of the color of the uniform. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for that
Yeah.
question and for that answer, of course. All right, so we covered the age range. And now I mentioned that I had a cadet school when I was in the Cadet Org, and
Mm,
you also had a cadet school. How was that for you? I mean, obviously, you can't compare it to, shall we say, normal school because you just had the cadet school. You didn't have normal school previously. Not like me. I went to regular school. I mean, I went to regular school until I was 10 years old, and then I was acting
mm.
up a bit too much. And then the school actually wanted to send me to a psychologist to find out
Ah,
if maybe I have some disorder, with dyslexia or anything like that. And
right.
my mother was like, "Oh my god, panic!" So she
Yeah.
got me out of there, and then she sent me to a Scientology school. And so from
Okay.
the age of 10 until 13, I was Scientology school, and then with 13, obviously, I joined the EPA, the Cadet Org. So I had some previous experience with just regular school, but you obviously only had that. But looking at now, you have yourself, you've had children, and
Mm.
sending them to school and so on and so forth. Like, what can you see? Like the comparison, like how was that for you to see the comparison, and what is the difference really?
Wow. Okay. Well, when I was younger, they hadn't set up the cadet school yet, so we actually went to a local public school.
Okay.
So I did kindergarten and first grade at a local school.
Mm-hmm.
But then they set up the cadet school at the Cadet Org,
Yeah.
and um, it's very much based on like Scientology's way of studying. So we had check sheets for
Mm-hmm.
everything. So if you wanted to do like we had a check sheet called read a book check sheet,
Okay.
and yeah, and all check sheets they just like give you a list of things and you have to do it in that order and you have to check off each step as you go.
Right.
So we had check sheets for everything, and we did have some maths books, and we had these very old American readers, McGuffey's reader.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think they stopped making those like in 1920 or something. But
Oh
we had
wow,
those
that
for a
old.
while. Yeah,
Oh wow.
and, and we had some stuff, and mostly it was so we had school from 8:30 in the morning until lunch, and you were supposed to do at least two subjects. So
Okay.
you could do reading and then you could do writing, or you could do math. And I mean, reading, writing, and math was pretty much all we had to choose from. They did have uh, check sheets that were called research check sheets, where you could pick a subject. For example, geography. I often picked geography as
Mm-hmm.
a research subject. And we
Mm-hmm.
had three sets of encyclopedias, one from the 50s, one from the 60s, and one from 79, which was the modern one.
Wow.
and and then you would follow the check sheet to like read up on whatever you pick the subjects. I also did like all the different types of dogs and all the different types of cats and all the different types of horses.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it wasn't structured and there was no follow-up. So for example, I got away with not doing math for 4 years.
Wow.
And when I compare my cadet schooling to my daughter's schooling, I
Mm-hmm.
would say my education stopped at somewhere between third and fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it wasn't great.
So did I understand this correctly? You could choose yourself what subject you wanted to do. I mean, of the 3 or 4 subjects that you had, including
Yeah,
this research one.
yeah.
Okay. No, with my experience, it was a bit more structured.
Okay.
Monday was we were doing this, Tuesday we were doing that, Wednesday we were doing that. Did you actually do you remember or have you heard of an inspector having come along to see if things are going on correctly with the school or anything like that?
No, no school inspector. No. So w- study time was 8:30 to 12, and there was a
Mhm.
break at 10. And after the
Okay.
break, you were supposed to switch subjects. But I
Right.
always switched. I just never switched to math,
Okay. You always
and
switch
nobody
something else, but
noticed.
not math. Yeah.
Yes. And
Wow.
nobody
Okay.
noticed for like 4 years. And then I
Wow.
was told I wasn't allowed to do any other subject until um, I caught up in math.
Yeah.
And then I did all the math requirements
Uh-huh.
in 2 months. And then I just went back to doing all the other subjects.
Did you also have like a point system? Like we
Yes.
had, for example, we had different sizes of these check sheets. So a smaller check sheet, I'm pretty sure a smaller check sheet gave you 4 points,
Mm,
and a larger check sheet was like maybe 15 or even 20 points.
mm,
Um, and so we also had check sheets as you described, where it says,
yeah.
read pages 1 until 20, and then write an essay or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the end, you have to sign off. Yes, I finished this, and then we had to go on the e-meter
Mm.
and do a proper attest as you would any other course completion in Scientology. Did you guys do that as well?
Um, Not for the schooling, but for the
Okay.
Scientology studies.
Okay.
So in the evenings, we had Scientology studies.
Yeah.
And for those, we had to go on the e-meter.
Hmm.
Um, but for the schooling, no. Most of the times, there was like a little test for the math books. There were small tests.
Sure.
Um, but for like the reading, if I did the read a book check sheet, I would read a book, and then the final exam was I would tell the class about the book.
Right.
That was it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then I would have to write, but you had to write a success story
Yes. Of
for
course.
everything, of
Of course.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did have points, but also we did student points in the exact same way you would do it in any Scientology course room. You
Hmm.
know, number of words cleared, number of pages read, and so on. So we
Yeah.
also had student stats as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've just seen a question which is very relevant because we didn't actually mention this. Are you in Europe? Yes, darlings, we are.
We
One
are.
of us is in Sweden, the other one is in Switzerland.
Yes.
It's basically the same country, isn't it, at this point?
A lot of people seem to think so.
Yeah, well, which is fine. Yeah, we're both in Europe, and yeah, that's why we have such fabulous accents. Yeah, good point. We didn't actually mention where we're from.
No, we didn't.
Yes, there we go. Okay, great. So we've gone over the schooling. How very exciting.
Yeah.
Now we did mention about missions
Yeah.
and projects. How was that structured for you guys in the Cadet Org? Because we had, I'm assuming you also had an org board, right?
Of-
Of course. And then was it Division 4 in which you had missions, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
had like a mission IC, and then
Mhm.
the way it was done, as I recall, we had from different orgs, maybe from CLO or from AOSH, and they would write down a mission. It's
Yeah.
usually things like cleaning. It usually was cleaning, tidying up, things like that. So it would say, mission is clean the library.
Yeah.
Where's the target? What are the cleaning materials? I don't remember if it says time given. Like I'm pretty sure it said like between this and this time, like it has to be done during this time. But
Yeah.
I don't remember it saying you have half an hour time to do that or anything like that. You mentioned earlier that when you were doing missions, you had more time. It was a bit more relaxed. Whereas when you were in DPF, it was much more timed. And I have the same feeling like that. That it was also a bit more casual in a manner of speaking. That you can really take your time.
Yeah.
But I do think there was like a time period. So it had to be done between 10 and 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. And then the mission IC would then assign, or in coordination with the CO, of the cadet org,
Yeah.
they would then decide, okay, Samuel, you're gonna do this mission, even though I wasn't in Division 4, I was somewhere else,
Yeah.
depending on the capacity. So everybody was basically taking part in mission,
Yeah.
regardless of where they were on the org book. How was that for you?
Yeah. So we had, in part, we had projects, and we did projects at the Cadet Org, and then we had
Mhm.
missions, which we did at Flag.
Yeah.
And most of the time, our missions at Flag were tech paging or
Mhm.
folder paging. So that's when
What is that?
so tech paging is at the HGC, the Hubbard Guidance Center, where the
Mhm.
people who pay to receive Scientology, they go there to receive their auditing. And there are always more people receiving auditing than there are auditors giving.
Right.
So they have to wait for their turn. And the tech page will run and get the next person in line because
Oh, okay.
they don't like to wait at that spot.
Sure.
So when the auditor goes in with person A, then the tech page runs and gets person B and gets them to go there and sit there and wait. So we
And would you
did
then
that.
also make sure that, for example, they've eaten enough? So you would
Yes.
go to them and say, "Are you hungry? Could you go to session?" And then they'll say, "Oh, actually, I'm a little hungry." And then you would
Yeah.
accompany them to the canteen or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
And folder paging is a similar thing, but you're transporting folders instead of people.
Mhm.
So that was the most common mission for us.
Yeah.
For me, it was a special kind of torture because I'm very shy, and I
Yeah.
had to go and get grown up people
Mm.
to drop what they were doing and follow me to the
Yeah.
HPC to sit down and wait for their turn, which could be anything from 10 minutes to 2 hours because you never
Sure.
know.
Of course.
Um, so yeah, that was the most common missions that we did. We also
Mhm.
I did a lot of housekeeping in the
Right.
hotels.
Mhm.
Scientology runs this business out of hotels, and I
Yeah.
did a lot of housekeeping.
Yeah.
Um, for about after I was the testing IC, which was a special mission. After I did the testing center, I actually was a housekeeper at the Yachtsman, which is one of the hotels at Flag.
Right.
Me and another girl for 6 months were the only housekeepers there.
Wow. And did you
So
have any training on how to do this? Like
um,
cleaning? Also, like instruction on like these chemicals. Look, these are very strong chemicals. You have to wear gloves, wear goggles. This is how it's done. This is how you dilute it or anything. Or was it just like, there you go, you figure it out?
well, we were cadets, so we knew the proper way of cleaning according to L. Ron Hubbard's technology of cleaning.
Of course, yeah,
And protective gear is not a thing inside in the Sea
yeah,
Org, so we did not have
yeah,
any protective gear.
yeah.
We did get to practice on making the beds just so with a
Mm-hmm.
housekeeper
Sure.
because we didn't make our beds like that in the Cadet Org, but everything else was just standard Sea Org cleaning, and I mean we've been doing that since we were little kids.
Of course, yeah, yeah. But there was no
But
special cleaning because it was for paying guests or anything like that.
right, no.
Mm.
But then also, and also after I think somewhere around 93,
Mm-hmm.
there were so many times that child labor had been reported around
Mm.
in Clearwater. So we did a lot of projects at the Cadet Org.
Yeah.
And basically, we did all of the groundskeeping, all the gardening. Um,
And can you
we,
remind us where was this cadet org? And like from the distance, like how far away was it?
um, 25-minute drive maybe from the
Mm-hmm.
base. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was at a place called the QI. It was an old Quality Inn motel.
Okay.
There was no quality about it when we
The quality was out, not
the
quality in,
quality
quality
was
out.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
But we built all our own bunk beds
Wow. Mm-hmm.
for a couple years. We were doing that. We were building bunk beds, and we were renovating the classrooms and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all the gardening and cleaning the dumpsters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And how was it? I mean, motels are usually a bit more isolated, a little bit further away from town. Was that also the case? It was not like near anything else?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So from there, you could walk like 10 minutes to the nearest like shopping center.
Okay.
but between us and the shopping center, there was a like a trailer park,
Mm-hmm.
and I think on the other side of us there was like some sort of like industry where they had like a bunch of construction material and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And was this old motel renovated or at least painted in a way that it didn't look like a motel from the outside? Because I'm just thinking to myself,
Mm.
somebody who doesn't know the area, they go with the car, they've been driving for hours, like, oh, let's go to a motel to have a lie down or whatever. Did anything like that happen, that people would show up and be like, where's the reception or anything like that?
No, I think they just tore down all the signs.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
it looked like a shitty place from the outside. It was a shitty place on the inside too.
Yeah.
Sorry, my language, but
No, but you were also shaking your head when I said about renovation. So I'm assuming it was just, there was no love, no investment at all to trying to make it more comfortable, nice. Let's talk about the like infrastructure, like how were, for example, the windows. Was there I don't know what the weather is there during the summer, but did you have any um um now I have a brain fart. How do you call it? When it's very hot and then you have a machine to bring in some cool
an
air.
AC.
Yeah, an
Yeah.
AC, with the windows properly isolated, anything like that?
All the renovations of the QI were done by us kids.
Mhm.
So anything that was any improvement was done by us, and mostly like we made all the bunk beds because of a lot of our bunk beds were regular beds that were stacked and hammered together.
Yeah,
So we we built all new bunk beds and we renovated the course rooms, as in we painted the walls and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, we had it was an old motel, and I guess at one point it was nice. There were like really big windows,
Mhm,
and there were these old AC units in each room,
mhm.
in the kind that sticks out through the wall. So there's a
Yes,
bit on
yes.
the outside, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but when those broke, you were lucky to get a replacement.
Wow.
I and Florida it's really hot in the summer. It's
Yeah.
it's really bad. And I was in a dorm once where we went 4 months in the middle of summer without a working AC. Uh, and
And
we would
how many were you in a room? And also the bunk beds, were they too high? Were they three high? You were talking about that you built them yourself. Did they ever, collapse or anything like that?
for the most part the bunk beds were too high, and we were
Mhm.
usually four to a room.
Okay.
Uh, and when I had the AC that didn't work, we all slept on the floor because it's slightly cooler. So
Sure,
we
sure,
just slept
because
on the
heat
floor.
rises. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness, yeah.
Um, yeah. But sometimes there were three high, but they were
Mhm.
so shaky. Like they were like built just plywood and two bars like on each
Yeah.
side, and they would shake, like the whole thing would shake when people would climb up in them.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Yeah. So there was like an age limit, like anybody over 8 couldn't sleep in the three because they
Of the weight, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lived in we actually lived in Walsh Manor, which was about 20 minutes drive away from St. Hill,
Yeah.
and we lived where all the other SEAL members lived. And where the cadets lived was in the old manor house. So the manor house as it stands now is an old Victorian manor house built around 1818, 1890.
Okay.
And it was all single panel windows.
Ah.
Uh, we didn't need an AC because, darling, we were in England. So, obviously, I mean, we did had a few, a couple of hot days in a year,
Yeah.
but, that
Yeah.
was pretty much it. But we had single paneled windows, and oftentimes on the sides of the windows like rotted away. So you had wind come in, or when it would rain, it would get very moist.
Yeah.
And our bunk beds, they were made out of metal, but
Okay.
you could sort of like pop pop them off, and then you could stack them in theory like up to infinity, because you could always put stuff in between each of the two beds. You could put just new metal poles on top of that, and you could just stack them
Yeah.
higher and higher.
Yeah.
And we had when I was in, we had three rooms for the cadets. One was for boys and two for girls, because we had much more girls. We were four in one room as well, and
Yeah.
then for the girls, one was a bit larger room. I think there were like 8, and then the other one was maybe was 3 girls in it. So we didn't have
Then
so many cadets. How many cadets were when you were in?
right, I was going to say that doesn't sound like many.
No.
We averaged probably around 150
Wow.
for a good number of years, I would say.
Goodness. Wow.
Um, yeah, I would think maybe, yeah, somewhere between 100. Like, I think the average was 100 for all
Yeah.
the years I was there, but some years we had up to 150.
Wow.
And yeah, and so most of the parents didn't live there.
Yeah, I
They
was
lived
just
at,
gonna ask that. How
yeah.
did that work for seeing your parents? Did you have like a designated time in the evening maybe where you could see them, or was it just if you're lucky, you're lucky? If it was only every second Saturday when you would have a day off or something like that?
So they had a system. I never really reflected on it before, but I started
Mhm.
thinking about it recently. So they
Sure.
had this system where until the age of 8, you lived in your parents' room. So if you
Hmm.
were parents and you had children under the age of 8, you lived at the QI.
Right.
And if you were single parents, then you lived with other single parents. And that's when we had the 3 bunk beds, because they would have like 2 single moms and 5 kids in one
Hmm.
room.
Hmm.
I lived like that for a little while.
Yeah.
And um, and then once you were 8, then you graduated from being a child to
Hmm.
being a pre-cadet and then a cadet, and then you were expected to move into a dorm. And at that point, your parents would move to the hacienda, which
Hmm.
was at a different berthing, which was almost a half hour away, I think, or 20 minutes away.
Wow.
Um, but the crazy thing about having the younger children in their parents' room, especially if because there were a lot of children they didn't have siblings, but their
Hmm.
parents were not single. So a lot of kids, they lived by essentially they lived on their own in their own room,
Right.
because the
Right.
parents were not there until like 11 or 12 at night.
Hmm.
So when I became a pre-cadet when I was 8, one of the responsibilities I was given, because I was no longer a child, was I had to put other children to bed.
Right.
And I had 5 children in 4 different rooms, because one pair were twins.
Hmm.
They were 4 years old, and
Yeah.
their parents, I had to put them to bed. They didn't have parents there.
Wow.
And then there were 3 other children on their own in rooms that I
Mm.
had to put to bed at night, and they
Wow.
were aged 3 to 6.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah. So most of the time we had family time. For a couple years there was
Mhm.
a routine called family time, where they
Yeah.
would pile the kids onto the bus and drive them out to the base to eat dinner with their parents.
Hmm.
Um, but that only worked if your parents had a post where they had dinner at that time.
Right.
So
Sure. Of course.
my mother is a waitress still in the Sandcastle restaurant,
Hmm.
so she's serving dinner at
Yeah.
that time. And my first stepfather, he was a cook in one of the
Mm.
restaurants, so he
Right.
was also working at that time.
Of
So
course.
I
Yeah.
didn't have parents to visit
Yeah.
at family time.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So and on Saturday mornings, when it's CSP, the Clean Ship Project, when all the parents, they get time to clean their rooms,
Hmm.
then we hung out with our parents while they clean their rooms.
Yeah.
And if your parents had already moved to the hacienda, then they would pile the kids onto the bus and drive them out there on
Okay.
Friday evening. And then
Yeah.
on Saturday at 11, the bus would go back.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned being a child, being a
mm,
pre-cadet, and being a
mm,
cadet. Would you
yeah.
mind explaining that, and also like at what point do you become the next step, basically?
So those were called ranks at, um, at the Flag Cadet Org. It was a rank. You were a child, meaning you couldn't take care of yourself.
Hmm.
And usually you were that until 7 or 8. And then you
Yeah.
had a short period of being a pre-cadet, where you were given some responsibilities,
Hmm.
but not too much, but some
Yeah.
responsibilities. And when you proved that you could handle those responsibilities, then you became a cadet.
Right.
and then you were posted on the org board, on the in the org. You were given a post, and then you
Mhm.
started doing missions
Yeah.
and projects. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, we didn't actually have this. We probably because when I was in the Cadet Org, you could only join the Cadet Org when you were the age of 10.
Mm,
So we didn't have anyone younger. So I
yeah.
was when I joined. This was in 2005.
Yeah.
Did that change as well while you were in the Cadet Org, or afterwards when you were in the Sea Org? That the age has changed. That they said, okay, only from this age onward.
Yeah. So when my parents joined, there was no age limit.
Hmm.
They joined actually, I think, 1 or 2 years after the rule of no children being
Hmm.
born into the
Right.
Sea Org. So
Hmm.
before, Sea Org members could have children in the Sea Org. Um, but I think that rule was in, I think, 79, when they said, no, no, you can't have a child in the Sea Org,
Yeah.
but you could still join if you had a child. And
Right.
when my parents joined, I was 2 years old. I was not the youngest.
Hmm.
My mother was actually given the post of nanny, and she had everywhere between 6 and 10 kids in diapers still,
Yeah.
some not
Yeah.
even walking age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, let's see, we joined 84. I think it was 87 ish,
Hmm.
where the rule came at 6 years. So
Right.
you could only join if your children were 6 or above.
Hmm.
And my mother used to say, "Oh, thank God we made it in before then."
Yeah.
And then I think the rule of 11 came while I was in the Sea Org.
Hmm.
So after 96 and before 2001, the
Hmm.
rule of 11. It might have actually, hang on, I might have still been in the Cadet Org when the rule of 11 was put in place. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it was. Because when I was still in the Cadet Org, the kids were aging and we weren't getting in newer,
New
younger.
ones. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And then I think they changed it to 16
Hmm.
maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
Yeah.
Well, they closed all the Cadet Orgs because it was just too much hassle.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you can
Yeah.
only join directly the EPF and then the SEOC.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they've also closed down. I actually did a video on my channel where I talk about my time in the Cadet Org and so on and so forth. And whilst doing that, I was trying to find documents online, anything really because we actually had once a school impact inspection, and I remember
Mm,
that, and it was a proper inspection. So I thought surely there must be something
yeah.
about documenting this, and I was able to find that. And by doing so, I was able to find another document showing that the school was closed.
Yeah.
I believe 2016 it was
Mm,
closed.
yeah.
So I'm assuming, based upon that there's no more school, that you can only join once you're 16 and then do the
Yeah.
EPF directly without the Cadet Org.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too much hassle, and of course the risk of and I remember this quite distinctly of investing so much time and so much
Mm,
effort in these cadets, right? And
mm,
then in the end, when they're 16, they vehemently say, I don't want to join, I don't want to join, I don't want to join. They cause a lot of trouble. And then in the
yeah.
end, they leave with their parents, right?
Yeah.
So there's like more loss. It's not just one person, but also the parents or the single mother, single father, whatever.
Mm,
And I mean, I remember this sort of feeling of that because this has happened also when I was in a Cadet Org and in the
yeah.
SEOC. This happened, and I'm pretty sure that was also a thing. And I remember this. I mean, it's just weird thinking about looking at children as an investment. They're just an investment for the SEOC. They're just
Mm,
fodder. They're fodder for the
yeah.
cannon, right? And that's all they are. There's
Yeah.
no other. There's nothing else other than that.
Yeah.
Did you
We,
also feel like that?
I grew up feeling I was a distraction.
Right.
We were always told we couldn't be a distraction to our parents.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, like we couldn't tell them about issues that were going on. We had to
Yes.
present, we had to be good PR to our parents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I always felt that I was a distraction. And unfortunately, I know a lot of kids left without their parents. Their parents stayed in.
Wow.
So I mean,
So
I
you mean
was grown.
the kids they said, I don't want to stay here, I want to leave, and then the parents or the HCO or whoever
Yeah,
managed to find some relative, somebody who
yeah,
was willing to take on the kid.
yeah.
Wow, unbelievable.
Hmm. I heard, and this is not my story, but I've heard that in LA sometimes they were just kicked out.
Just like
And
without organizing somebody to look after
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah.
And I mean, assuming many of the cadets, they came from different countries. You know,
Mm,
the
yeah,
parents and the cadets, they were not from there, or even if they came from America. I mean, America is huge. You know, they're
yeah,
just being dumped, and then they somehow have to find their own way.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
We
my
had a
god!
lot of Spanish-speaking cadets in my time.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
wow, that's quite shocking. I I'm really sorry that you saw and experienced that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't see any that did never happened. I mean, we've had I remember a couple of cadets that wanted to leave and then they left with their parents. Um, but I remember something slightly off topic when I left the Sea Org when I was 20 years old. To me, in my mind, it was clear I was going to go to my stepfather, who had at
Yeah,
this point divorced my mother and then went back to Switzerland. To me, it was clear I would go to him, right?
yeah.
But security, they didn't want me to go there because my stepfather, he blew the Sea Org,
Oh,
which means he departed without permission. He just left,
mm,
basically. And then they threatened him that if he doesn't come back, he will never be able to talk to his children ever again. So it's me, my brother, my sister. So we're three altogether, right?
yeah,
And then
right,
he came back and then he did the whole sec check and all of that. And then he left properly. But he still had like a black dot of shame because he blew first, right? He didn't
right,
leave properly. And so when I was at the point that I needed to leave the Sea Org, and it was like, okay, where am I going to go? For me, it was no question I would go to him. But they didn't want me to go there. They were actually going to send me to this Italian couple in Italy. And the reason why that particular is because they were leaving the Sea Org, and usually when you leave the Sea Org, you also have to do physical labors, what they call messed work,
yeah,
right?
right. Yeah,
And so they would come to the kitchen, which is often where you get sent to work with the washing up and so on and so forth. And I got to know them a little bit like that. There were a couple who together they were leaving, right?
right,
And they were leaving not because they wanted to, but it was like a health issue. There was like too much health issues, and and that's why they left. So it wasn't like it was like a better way of leaving, you know, because it's almost like you had to leave rather than you wanted to leave. And
right,
so they wanted to send me to them just because I knew them for a few weeks and we got on quite well, rather than send me to my actual father. I mean, he's my stepfather, but I considered him to be my father, right? So it's
right.
very similar as well. But doing that with a child, I mean, or not even that, and just sort of dumping them, I mean, that is crazy. And I didn't see any of that, thankfully, during the time that I was there.
That's. I mean, it's insane, but it's also how they see children.
Yeah,
This a nuisance and a distraction. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Can I circle back to the school inspection?
Yeah, of course, please.
We never had a school inspection, but we were raided a couple times by the police or Child
Wow.
Protective Services.
Yeah, yeah,
And one time they came in the middle of the night, and they woke up kids and they were asking questions like, "Are you eating enough?" and so on and so on. And
yeah, yeah.
there was one girl who got a special commendation because she handled the conversation with the police so well.
Oh,
Uh, because they were asking her like, "Did you bathe today?" And she was like,
mhm.
"No." And they're like, "Well, did you bathe yesterday?" "No." "Did you bathe the day before?" "No." "When did you last bathe?" And she said, "I don't bathe, I shower."
Wow, with attitude. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And sometimes we had to leave and all go camping. Um, and we would later find out that that was because there would be a raid there or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had something similar. So we had that school inspection, but it was really just for the school. It wasn't not we
Mm.
never had a welfare check.
Mm.
And I don't remember. No, actually, we did have 2 field trips. Once we were sent to London
Mm-hmm.
to the British Museum,
Mm-hmm.
where the entrance is also for free. And another time we went to like a local place. The Walsh Manor was in Crowborough, the town, and we did something there. Now, I don't know if I didn't find out if that happened because people came to inspect or anything like that. But what I
Right.
do remember was we were working outside on the ground. We also did, like yourself, gardenings. We were also digging a hole because we had a project of making a pond in front
Oh,
of the school, a pond there. Don't ask me why it had to be a pond there, but anyway, we were doing that sort of thing as well. And suddenly, the school IC came out and said, "Everybody, get inside and close the blinds." So then we
mm.
all ran inside. We put down the blinds, and we literally hid under the table as though it was like a bomb alarm or something. And then we heard there was a helicopter. So there was a
Oh,
helicopter flying above the grounds of Walsh Manor.
right.
Probably they were informed of children working outside. I don't know. But at
Yeah.
that point onward, we were not allowed to work outside anymore.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
only had cleaning missions.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it was like, I, how was it presented to you? Was it like presented like it was a little bit presented like a game, but also like these are the evil people. They're trying to stop us. You know what we're doing. You know how great it is, isn't it? Isn't it great, Samuel? And you're like, yeah, of course it is. So they are here trying to stop us and so on and so forth. Was that the sort of thing you were told?
Yeah, we were told like the psychs were trying to get us.
Right. Always
So the
those
big
damn
scary
psyched.
psychiatrists.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi, but your picture is freezing all the time, but I can hear you just fine. So I reckon we
Okay.
can just keep going.
Okay. If anybody in the chat, let me know. I mean, maybe we've been just talking to ourselves the whole time and nobody has been really listening. Let us know. Can you hear and see us everything well? Again, a little reminder, if you could write down comment or question, if you have a comment or question, just it makes it easier for us to see that. And a
Okay.
little reminder as well, if you could be such darlings and go to Bianca's channel. I've got here, I made a little, there you go. Look how professional we are here. We got here the little link you can go to look at the channel, subscribe if you'd be so kind. And yeah, I think this is fantastic that there are more and more people in Europe popping up and telling their stories. I mean, we all know Scientology is shrinking,
Yeah.
obviously, but it is spread worldwide.
Yes.
So it's spread very thinly, but it's spread worldwide. And I think this is great that there are more and more people in Europe also talking about this stuff. And yeah, that's why I was so glad to have you come on. And we're gonna have lots more talks as well. Today, obviously, we're focusing on the Cadet Org.
Yeah.
All right. Project and missions, we've already looked at that a little bit. Is there any you wanted to mention particularly? Any sort of weird missions that you had to do regularly, or unusual missions? Like, for example, for us, when the IS event was on, we had to go and help at the IS event, set it up. Now, we didn't have like, these tons of heavy beams or anything. What we would often do is we would help with flower arrangements. We would
Yeah.
help with, that's probably why I turned out gay, by the way. And then we would help out, for example, with the chairs, putting out all the chairs, hoovering, doing a little bit paint jobs as well. When you
Yeah.
when you see the IS event or any of those events, you see always these huge columns and all of that. That's all plastic. That's all what's that? That bubble, that plastic bubble that's all pressed together.
Styrofoam.
Styrofoam. It's all styrofoam, and then
Yeah.
there's like a layer painted on top of it to make it smooth. And then with sponges and with paintings, we make like veins in it, so it looks like marble.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something also that we did, for example. Uh, did you have any like weird project, like also something like yearly events or anything like that you always had to do?
No, that sounds like it would have been a lot of fun. We did not get to do those types of fun projects.
Mm.
Although we did, when Flag started doing the Winter Wonderland right across the street
Ah, right.
where the superpower building is now, there was an empty lot for a lot of years,
Hmm.
and there was some bad PR, and the local people of Clearwater were not impressed with Scientology, and so they're like, "We'll make a Winter Wonderland." Um, on that empty lot, and we
Mm.
often got to go there as crowd fillers, which we
Right. So
thought
it was
was a lot of
busy.
fun, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we got to
Okay.
hang out into Wonderland.
Yeah. Here's just a little a question from Hans Christian Schwartz. Hello, by the way. Are you simultaneously streaming, Bianca? Well, are you?
I hope so.
In theory, yes. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure she is.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I clicked all the buttons, and I
And it
think
looks
it's
all
set up.
fine on my end as well. So yes, we are both streaming simultaneously.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, okay. And were you allowed to also like play around there a little bit? You know, because obviously it would be suspicious if you're sort of just standing there as
Yeah.
children. Were you allowed? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were often seat fillers at events as well,
Yes, sure. Oh, did
because
you
when they're
also have? Oh, sorry. Please
yeah,
continue.
when they're filming the event, like when it's being held at Flag and they're filming it, and they don't want to see empty seats in the crowd in the filming.
Of course.
So
Yeah.
so we would stand, along the side of the walls, and if
Mm-hmm.
somebody gets up to go to the bathroom, we would run and take their seat, and then we'd
Really?
watch. Yeah, and then when they
Oh
come
my
back, we
God.
would
Yeah.
switch. Yeah,
Oh wow. So there was always full whenever a
yeah,
picture was taken or whatever.
yeah. Never an empty seat.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
did you guys have crashes as well? I don't know how you call it in America. A crash? Do you know what that is? A crash is when you have like an event or something for adults, and then you have a separate area for children where the children hang out and so on and so forth. That's how you call it in England,
Oh
a
yeah,
crash. And then we cadets, we would oftentimes be there not to also hang out, but to help look after the children of the different public and so on and so forth.
yeah. Babysitting. We
Yeah,
did that at all the events. Yeah, it was
yeah.
usually in the canteen at Flag. The
Hmm.
I think it was called the Hourglass Canteen,
Okay.
back when they used to do the events in the Flag Auditorium.
Hmm.
And the people would just come and toss their children there, and we would take care of them,
Yeah, yeah.
which I hated. So
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I didn't like it either. And but I do remember there were something that I found always annoying, that they had a TV, right? Which is like,
yeah,
because obviously as a cadet or a SEAL member, you're not allowed to watch movies or anything like that, right? But they always, every crash, they always had just one movie, and it would
uh,
just play on loop the whole time, the whole time, the whole time. It was just and it would go on for hours.
oh
Yeah.
gosh, we had a TV at the Cadet Org. Did you have a TV?
Really?
Yeah,
Let me think about that for a moment. I'm sure we had a TV for, yeah, of course we had a TV, because um, when we, because in Scientology, for whatever reason, nobody knows, but the week ends on Thursday, 2 o'clock.
hmm,
And everybody, whether you're a cadet, SIOC member, staff member, you have statistics. And then based on the statistic, when you are upstat, meaning that your statistic shows that you've done better than the week before, then you
yeah,
can get rewarded if the org overall is upstat.
yeah.
And then what was that called again when you have like a movie night as a reward? Do you remember?
Um, I think we just called it movie night.
Okay. We had a special word for it. I don't remember that
Okay,
anymore.
yeah,
But then you would usually, I think on Friday, we would then have movie night, and it was done this way. So if the org overall was upset, then
yeah,
the movie on night was on, right?
yeah,
Then if let me see how that went. I think if you had only like a slight rise on your statistic, like a normal, basically,
right,
then you were just out to attend there. And if you had more than a normal, like an affluence, or you were even in a power trend, which is a very,
yeah,
basically when you have the statistic and it goes, let me see if I can do this properly. It goes up, 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 and then it remains on a very high range. That's called the
right,
power trend. So if you have a
mm,
power trend or an affluence, then you're allowed to eat snacks.
yeah,
and food was bought to eat while watching the movie. Did you have
Right.
a system similar like that as well?
Yeah, we had ice cream and cookies.
Right?
And if you were, a little bit upset, you got to watch the movie. And if you were a lot upset, you got ice cream and cookies
Yeah.
to watch the movie. And it was Friday night, yeah.
Hmm.
And we, um, it was the cadet coordinator who picked the movie. We had a Blockbuster at the shopping center, like
Okay.
10 minutes walk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't think he always considered the fact that he was choosing movies for children,
Oh
right?
dear.
So I remember being traumatized by many movies that I saw there.
Uh no,
Yeah.
we it wasn't our cadet IC who chose it. Was us choosing it, and um it was like always sort of put up for the vote.
Okay.
Uh, and I remember this one girl, and she was the youngest, I think, and she always wanted to watch a Barbie, like one of those Barbie um, um, cartoon movies.
Yeah.
You know which ones I mean? Like
Yeah, I
really,
do.
like those old Barbie cartoon. I'm talking about like back from the 90s
Sure. Okay.
or early 2000. And she always wanted that, and she would always make such a fuss, so that every once in a while, sort of out of sympathy or out of like, otherwise we'll hear about it all week. We would watch then one of those.
Oh God.
But we've also watched quite a few horror movies.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
saw a lot of horror movies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, you have different age range. So
Mm.
the older kids, they wanted to watch a horror movie or a movie with lots of like blood and gore or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, that was quite unpleasant at times.
Yeah. I don't remember the movie at all except for the title, and
Hmm.
that I was so traumatized by it. I
Hmm.
think I was 9 or 10 when I saw a movie called Mississippi Burning,
Okay. No, I
which
I don't
is
know that
about
one.
racism in the South.
Okay.
And I was like, this was our upstat reward night. Thanks. Thanks so
Lovely.
much.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I also only remember one movie because it also kind of traumatized me. It was called the um right, of course now I don't remember it. That was called like the Grinch or something like that, and it was about um it was a Japanese movie, and Japanese horror movies are quite famous for being incredibly like realistic and really like people have physical reactions watching it.
Mm,
And it was about a haunted house where
mm.
somebody got murdered in it,
Oh
and
God.
and then it was like vacant for a very long time, and then somebody basically buys the house, and then he starts seeing weird things and so on and so forth, and then in the end he gets killed by this ghost, right?
Was it The Grudge?
Or the Grunge, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I
something
haven't
something
seen.
along so it was something like that, the name, yeah.
Yeah, no. I was ruined for horror movies in the Cadet
Yeah,
Org. Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah. And let's talk a little bit maybe about the posts that you had.
Sure.
What
Yeah.
were like, obviously we had missions that we had to do, that
Yeah.
was regardless of what your post was, but how about what was your post, what was your main responsibility?
For a long time, I was a canteen IC, which was my favorite.
Ah, yeah.
And I was a treasury secretary
So this
for
was
about a
Division
year.
3.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I did not like that at all. I was
Yeah.
uh, because we were supposed to be paid by the Sea Org that was hiring us for the missions.
Right.
But to get that money as the treasury secretary, I had to go to those department heads and say, "Give us the money."
Yeah,
And
as
I'm
a
a very,
child.
very shy
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah,
And handing over money is not something anybody in the Sea Org does willingly. So yeah, didn't go so well for me.
yeah. Yeah, no, I was mainly posted in Division 2, which I believe is promotion and marketing.
Yeah,
But also part of that is also to make money. So
yeah,
I would bake, make cookies, flapjacks, cakes, and things like that. And then even in the evening, when the SEAL members would come home, we would sell them, and that is how we
right.
made our income. Because I don't know if you remember this, but I mean, Hobart obviously he wrote many FOs. FOs are flag orders. So these are
Mm,
policies written specifically for only Sea Org members and, of course,
Yeah.
people on the EPF.
Right.
People outside the Sea Org are not supposed to see this. And he wrote, of course, many about the Cadet Org. And I remember, I don't know if you remember as well, that there was one talking about the pay of the cadets. And I remember it saying that it had to be half of the pay of, for example, of CLO, the Continental Liaison Office.
Oh,
In our case now, whichever org it would be in your case. So if they got £20 in 1 week, we were supposed to get £10 each. But we
right. Yeah.
never saw a trace of that. We never
Yeah.
saw any of that. So we had to make our own money by
Yeah.
doing that. We also did laundry, for example, for SEAL
Right.
members, because SEAL members, they worked all day long, 12, 14, 16, 18 hours. And then they're
Yeah.
still expected to do laundry,
Right.
their own laundry, right? And so we were hired by individual SEAL members, and then we had like a basket. If the basket was half full, it was maybe like £1, £1.50. It was completely full, it was like £2 or £3 to do the laundry.
Right.
And then if they wanted to have stuff ironed by children, they paid like 20 pence per iron shirt or anything like that. Did you
Mhm.
guys also bake, sell, or do laundry? And well, actually, it would be inconvenient because you were in a completely different place.
Right.
Yeah, of
Because we're
course.
in a different place.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes some of the kids would like think of like money making schemes similar to that, but we were told that it would be a distraction from post for the adults. So
Okay.
we weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Our advertisement or our division two, we basically did PR. Like we had a choir that went around and sang. We sang sometimes at the Sea Org Day for all the adults. We
Mhm.
had a cadet song that we sang, which was the worst song ever in the world. Or we would sing like Christmas songs in December and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. I've started a few questions and comments. Do we want to have
Okay.
a look at those?
Yes.
All right. So we got here a question from Anna, I think for you. Question: Did you know Zoe Woodcraft in the Flag Cadet Org? She
I
did
did.
an interview with Mark Bunker in the early 2000s. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew her. She and her sister, I think, Astra. Astra wasn't in the Cadet Org at Flag, but Zoe was. I think they both came over from the Cadet Org in California.
Mm-hmm.
And their parents were like high executives.
Right.
And Zoe had a hard time adapting to life in the Cadet Org,
Mm-hmm.
and she acted out a lot.
Yeah.
That's what I remember about her.
And how was that with, for example, you are a cadet, and then your
Mm.
parents are like, was there like were you treated differently within the Cadet Org if, for example, your parents were in CMO, in INT, if they were only in the AO, anything like that? Was there anything felt like that in the Cadet Org?
Not really, but you could
Mm-hmm.
usually tell who had parents that were that had registrars,
Mm-hmm.
because registrars. So when they get someone to pay money, they get a percent of that.
Sure.
So all the kids that had registrars as parents, they had new clothes instead of secondhand clothes, for example.
Sure. Sure.
There was one kid who had parents in the IAS, and all they do is make money.
Of
And
course.
she
Because
had
they get
like,
a percentage as well
yeah,
of all the it's important to be said as well. If you as a Silk member or as a staff member, also as a public, if you sell services, if you get people to buy stuff, if you get people to donate to different causes, you get a percentage. And
yeah,
also as a Silk member.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there was one girl that had a fridge and a freezer in her room, which was very rare.
Wow.
And her parents kept it stocked with popsicles, which we weren't technically allowed because we weren't allowed to eat sugar except on Saturdays.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that as well. We also were not allowed to eat sugar. And what happened? On Saturday, we stuffed our faces with sugar. And we had sugar overdoses, and we'd run around and scream because of sugar shock.
Yeah.
And then we were useless in the afternoon because we were
Yeah.
completely dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was obvious that was obviously going to happen. And as children, if you say you don't do this, Well, then obviously you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there were many, I remember many OWs that we have to write that down, all your criminal activities as children. And oftentimes it was, I bought a Snicker bar, I ate this or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Me, you know what I did often, other than sneaking sugar on a weekday, um, I would exchange my shampoo because you're not allowed to have anything perfumed,
That's right. Yeah.
and the perfume-free shampoo was always more expensive
Mm, true.
because it was like allergy friendly or whatever, whatever. So
Yeah.
I had bought a shampoo and a conditioner, and when I had used it up, I just washed out the empty bottle, and then I bought
Hmm.
the cheap herbal essence and poured it over.
Yeah. And then if somebody were to say, this smells funny, you can show the bottle. Oh, what's this here?
Yeah,
It's all free. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Wow. That's actually really clever. I didn't think of that.
yeah.
Awesome idea.
Yeah, I did that all through my years, and I was always getting in trouble for it.
Okay. So you were caught.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a little hello from PTS for live. Nice
Hello,
seeing
Jack.
you here. Yeah. All right. Here's another question. Question for both of you from Anna. Have you reconnected with people who were in the Cadet Org with you? Or even do you know if some of them are out?
I haven't.
Do you know of anybody that you were in that is out, even if they haven't contacted you? Maybe you've seen them, I don't know, on
Mhm.
Facebook or something like that. Because I definitely was a stalker. I've definitely stalked people on Facebook to see, write down names and things like that. And then I did find a couple of people. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I had a really rough time in the Cadet Org. I
Hmm.
was bullied a lot by the other
Mm.
cadets because I was weird and different, and I um I have a hard time remembering names and faces as it is,
Yeah.
and so a lot of people I have forgotten.
Mm.
Now I have spoken with one girl. I got in touch before I left Scientology. I got in touch, or I had a few people that I found on Facebook and I added them, but we never really talked. But there was one
Hmm.
girl that I spoke with just after I woke up, and I was trying to figure out if she was still in or not, but it turned out she was still
Right.
in.
Yeah.
So, but we had a very, very nice conversation. She was a couple of years younger than I was,
Hmm.
and I was responsible for her um,
Right.
for a while. And we had a lovely conversation, but she's still in. And
Hmm.
recently, I was actually added to a Facebook group of like 90 former flag cadets.
Wow. But they're probably all still in.
They're all still in.
Oh my God.
So I'm just sitting there lurking. It's not very active though. But yeah,
Yeah.
but as far as I can tell, they're all still in. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I also noticed that most of them are like 5 years younger than I am. So a lot of them I don't remember, but some of them I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Here
no,
was
not really.
okay. Yeah, I had yeah, when I left the Sea Org, uh it took some years for me to start trying to find out other people, maybe they have left or where are they, because there were several cadets also that were sent to America to flag or wherever, so I never
Yeah.
saw them again, so I didn't know, if they had left or not. And
Mm.
so I did go on Facebook and trying to find, and I did find a few people. And I don't have Facebook anymore, but I do have Instagram, and I think I still am. I don't know if I still am or if they've already unbefriended me, but I was befriended with a few ex with a few ex cadets with whom I was in the cadet dog, and yeah.
Right, yeah.
But again, but I didn't really have lots of conversation. I said, when I saw them, I was just, oh hi, so and so, how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks. How are you? Great. And it was sort of like that. It wasn't like a real, because again, I didn't want to show too much that I'm out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But here was a little comment when I was I think when I was talking about me leaving the Siog. Wait, they were going to send you live with random Italian couple that you aren't even related. What the? Yeah, absolutely. And that's not unusual. I mean, it's not something that didn't just happen to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
When I was leaving, when I left Flag or the Sea Org at Flag, I came here to Stockholm and I lived with my grandmother.
Hmm.
But my mother, who's still in the Sea Org at Flag, she wanted me to stay closer by. Now, security told me I wasn't allowed to be in Clearwater at all. But she had a friend, a public, who was living in Tampa, and she wanted me to live with that person. And I was like,
Right.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Here's a little comment. I love to see some Australians too. Absolutely. That was probably when we were talking about it. It was great to see so many Europeans now talking about their experience. Absolutely, from all over the world. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Let's see more Aussies.
Well, there's Miriam Francis speaking
Oh
up.
yes, of course. Yeah.
She's Aussie. And
Yeah.
Gawain Baxter is
Hmm.
suing the Church of Scientology, and he's Australian, and he was also raised at the Flag Cadet Org with me.
Oh, so you knew him?
Yeah, we were the
Yeah.
same age. We were there. I think we were on the EPF together the
Wow.
second time I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm.
Here's another question for you from 91 M. Lee. 91 Lee. I choose to read it out loud like that. Question: did you do any Scientology in Sweden? I know you said your grandma was a higher up in Sweden, but I don't remember if you answered this before.
Yeah. My grandmother was very influential in Sweden's Scientology world, especially here in Stockholm. She was very, very active, first in Göteborg, where she was living when she first discovered Scientology, and later in Stockholm. She has passed away, so she's no longer. And I would have, I didn't leave while she was still alive. I don't think I would have even been able to have considered the thought, because she was when she was alive, she was one of my most favorite people in the whole world. And she was a wonderful person, despite being a Scientologist.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there are many, I would say even there are many Scientologists who are very nice people who genuinely
Yes.
want to help people. I mean, you go in
Yeah.
Scientology, of course, to improve yourself,
Yeah.
but the focus is also to improve the life of others,
Yeah.
even if it is misguided, But
Yeah.
people, I would say the majority of Scientologists really are very nice people who genuinely
Yeah.
want to help. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I'm glad you were able to have also a connection with your grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad too.
Mhm.
I feel like we were very close before I started to slip away. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And here's a little funny little comment from Anna. Bianca was a rebel. She dared smelling nice.
Yeah.
All right. So these are all the start comments and question I have so far.
Okay.
I thought perhaps we'll end off on a light note. Oh, actually, I've just seen another question here. Let's see. Question: did you think your grandmother thought you had a nice childhood in the Cadet Org? Would you like to answer
Yeah.
that? Or
I do think she thought that.
Mm,
My grandmother was high up on the bridge, so she was often coming to Flag, even when I
mm,
was young.
yeah,
And when I was young, she sometimes came out to the QI to visit me. But as I said, like, the cadets kept good PR, good relations to their parents,
right.
extra so to someone who wasn't in the Sea Org. So when my
Yeah,
grandmother came out, she wasn't in the rooms, she wasn't in the school. She would come out and sit in the pool area, and everybody would be given pool time and to swim. And
yeah.
we didn't always get pool time. Most of the time, the pool wasn't functional.
Mm,
But she was there a couple times, and I also was allowed out of the Cadet Org when she was on services at Flag. So she would, when she was doing OT7, she would, be in the sandcastle, and she would have a room in the sandcastle, and
mm,
I would stay in the sandcastle with her. Um, uh, yeah. Then I would go do my projects or my missions during the day, and then in the evenings I would eat dinner with her and hang out with her when she
yeah,
wasn't in auditing or on course. So I do think she thought that I had a good childhood, and I never told her or showed her otherwise.
Of course, because yeah, you always had to present that everything was fine, that you were happy,
Yeah.
because it would be a distraction, of course. I mean, she
Mm,
was doing her OT levels. So if she
mm,
had a so-called PTP, a present time problem, so
right.
she knows, oh my God, Bianca, she isn't eating properly. Look at where she's living and so on and so forth. That might
Yeah.
actually cause her to not be able to continue on the bridge on her auditing, because that is a distraction for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
very tough to actually say what you actually think, what you
Yeah.
actually are going through, because you don't want to be a burden, you don't want to be a distraction, you don't want to upset. You always pretend everything is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question, because I hadn't really thought about it before. But yeah.
Hmm. I've here another comment from marvelous gay. Gabrielle, we did yesterday a lovely threesome with Jeff. It was wonderful and deeply satisfying, I have to say. Yes. So, comment: one of the hardest things when leaving was losing good friends. Oh yeah,
Mm,
that's true.
mm.
And also, I would say making friends, at least for
Yes.
me, because
Yeah.
when you're leaving, you are. I mean, particularly in your case, I mean, you grew up there when you were 2 years old, so you didn't really know anything else, and then
Yeah.
you go outside and everything is completely different.
Yeah.
Everything works different. Everything works, the operation is different. People speak in a different way. So
Yeah.
the different lingo, but also the way they talk to people,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, do you want to briefly maybe talk about that? How that was to sort of like get into that and try to, uh, build friendships and so on and so forth.
Um. Yeah. I didn't really, when I left, I wasn't worried about leaving good friends, because so many times, as I said, I was bullied a
Mm,
lot when I was younger, and so many times I've had friends that have written reports on me, you know,
yeah,
because that's what you do in Scientology. And so
of
I
course.
wasn't, there was only one friend I was like upset to be leaving behind when I left the Sea
Yeah,
Org. But making new friends, I really struggled for many years.
yeah,
And one of the first, one of my first friends here in Sweden, because I also didn't speak Swedish very well when I moved
right.
here,
Of
and I
course, yeah.
couldn't read Swedish.
Hmm.
And my father got me a part-time job, and I was there working with another girl. And over time, we became friendly. I wouldn't,
Mm.
we're not still friends and so on. And after I had known her for um, like almost a year, she told me one day, she said, when I first met you, I thought you were mentally slow.
Oh,
because
wow. Yeah, yeah.
because I only did exactly as I was told. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
initiate any conversations. I was
Right.
so rigid in my think. I did everything like a very autistic person would do.
Yeah.
And
Like a machine.
yeah, like a machine. And also
Absolutely. Yeah.
because I didn't speak Swedish very well, I had to ask everybody to slow down when they were
Of course.
speaking to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there were so many things I didn't understand, like about politics and
Mm.
higher
Yeah.
education. I didn't know what higher education was.
Yeah, yeah, of
So many
course.
things I didn't
Yeah.
know, and she and she told me, like, a year after I'd known her,
Yeah.
that she thought I would have been mentally challenged.
No, I've had that as well, because even now I struggle with this, that at work,
Mm,
to allow yourself to just take it easy for a moment, maybe have a little chat. Oh, how was your weekend? What did you do?
yeah,
If time allows,
yeah,
and because that would never be permitted.
yeah,
If you have time to chit chat about something completely irrelevant,
yeah,
then you're wasting time. You're
yeah,
wasting production time. You could be
yeah,
working, doing other things, and you learn to never talk when you work. And I generally am very quiet when I work. I only
yeah,
talk when it's relevant to work. But I do sometimes, when it's a day, it's a little slower. I still work as a cook, by the way, as a chef, and
yeah,
sometimes it's a little bit slow on a day, maybe. And I
mm,
allow myself now. I have to sort of say to myself, "All right, just calm down and just maybe pick up a conversation or something," because you're always a bit of the weird one. Or, for example, I once worked in a hotel, and after I had left, I found out years later that people thought I was really arrogant because I would
Oh,
never initiate a conversation.
right.
But it was
Yeah.
the exact opposite. I felt really because this was a very, very, it's one of the best hotels in Switzerland, and I felt really like imposter syndrome that I'm
Yeah.
working there, and I
Yeah.
felt almost like I was on the RPF, so I'm not allowed to talk to them. Like, how dare I talk to these people there? I'm obviously
Yeah.
an imposter. Maybe they find
Yeah.
out I'm an imposter. So
Hmm.
later on, I found out about that, and I have to say, yeah, of course, I can see why people would think that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
There's in Sweden we have something called fika,
okay,
which is you drink a coffee and you eat something sweet, and
hmm,
it's very integrated in Swedish culture. You take a
yeah,
fika, usually at least once a day, around two
and
or
what?
three in the afternoon.
2 or 3, yeah,
Yeah, but sometimes also in the mornings.
sure,
Um, and it's in the Swedish workplace. It's it's like part of your job to
yeah,
go
yeah,
and sit down and chit chat with your colleagues, right?
sure,
And on my first job, my boss kept telling me, "Oh, it's fika time," and I thought she was trying to catch me out in slacking. So I always said
oh,
no. I said no
yeah.
for like 4 or 5 months, and then she pulled me into a meeting with HR.
Yeah,
And she was like, "You never come to fika. What is wrong? Do you not like us? Do you not like the
yeah,
workplace?
yeah.
Uh, do you have too much work? Are you too stressed to have a fika?" And I
I
was like,
Imagine that, people actually caring if you're stressed.
yeah. I was like, it was such a culture shock. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally. Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
still get, like, I've been here for more than 20 years now, and I
Yeah,
still
but you
get
still have
sometimes my
that.
colleagues tell me, "You don't need to be a robot. You can
Yeah.
take a break."
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is something that that takes really time to sort of adjust to that. But I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to adjust. Like so long as you feel comfortable and you're happy with the way it is, that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, there's no need to no need to push yourself doing things
Mm.
that you unless you want to, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I
Mm.
thought perhaps as sort of to finish off our conversation, which by the way was fabulous, of
It
course,
was great. Yeah.
naturally. I thought maybe we'll talk. Obviously the Cadet Org was pretty unpleasant, pretty shitty.
Yeah.
However, there was maybe moments where it was kind of funny and sort of
Mm.
like little a little memory that we might look back and we think, oh, this was kind of fun. Would you like to
Sure.
talk about like a little adventure that you maybe had or anything like that?
Um, I'll tell you a story that I find very funny after the fact.
Okay, sure.
I did not really have many. Um, I had a lot of adventures, but there was always something bad about them. We did camping quite a bit actually in the
Okay, yeah,
Flag Cadet Org, and
yeah,
I thought that was a lot of fun. But I was also being bullied all the time, so it wasn't fun for that.
sure.
Um, but um, for a couple years, we had some boats because we were supposed to be proper Sea Org members, and
Right.
we had check sheets, of course, to learn how to sail the boats.
Wow. Yeah.
And they were really small, like one grown person boat or two kids boats.
And did it have an
And
engine?
no, a
No.
sail,
Okay.
just a sail,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay, like that. Yeah.
And on one of the last courses, uh, we had to do something called the capsize drill. So
Mm,
basically, the boat has to tip over, and you have
yeah.
to practice tipping it back up in
Right.
case that happens, because it
Sure.
could be dangerous.
Yeah.
And um, I had been very nervous about doing the capsize drill, but
Of
finally I
course.
was like, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to
Mhm.
do this. I've gone over the techniques in my head. I'm ready to do it, and so on. And that day was a tropical storm.
Oh
So
no.
there was a
Oh,
tropical storm, and there was a tornado warning,
yeah.
but it was Wednesday, and we never had time to go sailing Thursday before too. So we had to get the stats up.
Oh my
And my
God.
mom called to the boats because there was a phone there, and she works on the Sandcastle restaurant, which looks out over the water where
Okay.
we used to sail.
Right.
And she said, "Whatever you do, do not go sailing today." And me being a proper cadet, and being a, eternal being in a small body was like, sure, whatever, mom. And I hung up and I went out sailing.
Oh no.
And we capsized like 5 times because the boat just would not stay straight up because of the
Yeah,
winds.
of course.
And I righted it, and and yeah. She saw me out on the water, or she saw a little boat being thrown around in the water and the waves
Yeah.
and the wind, and
Oh
she
my
called
God.
like 10 times while I was out. And then when I got back in, and I was so glad that I'd
You were
managed to
very
do it.
proud, of course.
Yeah, and I got a
Yeah.
pass, and we got the
Yeah.
stats up, and then she yelled at me for
Oh my
like
God.
10 minutes on the phone.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
proper adventure.
Yeah, it was an adventure.
Oh my God. Yeah. I wish I had gone first. No, my memory is when we doing school time, we also had sports time. We had PE, physical education,
Sure.
and then like things like football. I absolutely hated doing that. But
Yeah.
we also played a game called Rounders, which is a British game. It
Mhm.
is the same like baseball.
Okay.
So baseball is based on Rounders. Rounders is
Oh,
about 600 years older as a game, you know. And
okay.
the bat that you use is only this big. It's quite a small
Oh,
bat,
okay.
and you pitch the ball not from above as you would, or from the side as you would from with baseball, but from below. You throw the ball from below
Okay.
and then you hit it, and
Mhm.
then as you would do in baseball, you have to run around posts. And when
Yeah.
you go, and there are 5 posts. When you're on the third post, you get half a point, and if you manage to get to all the way through, you get 1 point. But as you run from post to post, somebody could catch the ball from another player, and when that happens, then you're out.
Yeah.
Right? It's very similar like it is in baseball. And that was a game I really enjoyed because I was actually quite good at it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have some fun memories of that time.
Yeah. I was not good at any of the sports. I hated PE.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But yeah, I it was a time where there was more laughter than other times of the day, even though
Sure.
I didn't partake. Many others did. So I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, Bianca, it's been an absolute pleasure and a blast talking to you.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been lovely. And thank you as well for everybody in the chat for all your comments, for your questions. Um, would you like to say anything else? Would you like to say anything else before you attest to this live stream?
Um, no.
No, me neither. Except that it was fabulous, of course.
It was
So
fabulous.
it's fabulous, of course. So I want to say thank you again to everybody. Make sure you go over to Bianca's channel and subscribe to her. If indeed you have not, here's again a short little reminder with a very professional banner, of course, in goldenrod yellow. So with that, I wish you a most marvelous evening and goodbye.
Goodbye.